Now, I don't know if you've ever had an important speech you needed to give, and so you practiced it and practiced it and practiced it so you would get it just right. I remember when I was in high school, there was a girl that sat in front of me in biology class. That, boy, she was pretty. And I really wanted to take her out on a date. And so I was old enough to have a driver's license, and I remember practicing that phone call down to, "Hello, is this Lisa? This is Jimmy." And I practiced down exactly what I would say and how I was going to say it. And I remembered when I made the phone call how nervous I was. I dialed the phone, and I heard a sweet voice on the other end say hello, and I hung up real fast because I was scared. And then I waited a little while longer. That was before caller ID, you know. So she didn't know who it was. And I waited a little while longer, and if I recall, it may even have been the next day that I finally called. And I finally got up enough courage to give my practice speech. "Hello, may I speak to Lisa, please?" On the other end of the phone, "Yes, this is Lisa." "Hi, this is Jimmy." "I know, I recognize your voice." Then I said, You wouldn't want to go out with me, would you? On Friday night?" And as it turned out, I was right. She didn't want to. Can you imagine that I called her on a night when she needed to wash her hair? She said, "No, I can't go. I'm washing my hair that night." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And then I hung up. As I think about it, couldn't she have washed her hair earlier in the day? I suspect she really did not want to go out with me. Regardless, you know what it's like to practice one of those kinds of speeches, right? I would imagine this boy all the way home from that distant land, he practiced. "I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired hands. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired hands. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." He practiced as he walked. I imagine he practiced. And his father saw him. A long way off, his father saw him. And he ran to him. I'm a middle-aged man, 50 years old. I suppose if I'm going to live to be 100, I'm a middle-aged man. I don't know why they call us middle-aged. I'm more of a three-quarter man, probably. I don't run very much. In fact, I've started to grunt like my grandfather when I get out of the chair. You know that sound, "Oh," as you get up and as you get down. I don't run much. Most middle-aged men don't. Now, when I was a child, it was, "Don't run in the church. Be still." I ran everywhere I went, but not anymore. I walk or hobble to the places I go. That's the way it is in our day and our culture. But you must know, in the ancient Near East, it was considered undignified for a middle-aged man to run. He didn't care. He saw his boy. Just as a shepherd left the 99 to go after the one, and just as the woman swept the house to find the one coin, this father saw his lost son in a distance, and he ran to him. And the boy began his speech, the one he had practiced for hours. "Father, I'm no longer worthy to be called." The father looks at his boy. He sees the shriveled shape he's in and says nothing to his boy. Instead, he speaks to his servants. And he says to them, "Get the finest robe." Who do you think the finest robe belonged to? They had to go to the father's closet to get that robe. "Bring the finest robe," he said. "And his ring, his family ring, it's gone. Bring a family ring and shoes. Put sandals on his feet. My son was dead and now he's alive. He was lost and is found." And there's one more instruction he gave, wasn't there? He said, kill the fatted calf. It's party time. Notice the pattern. The son was lost, and now he is found, which was reason to party. Sound familiar? Remember, there was a sheep that was lost and then was found, which was reason to party. There was a coin that was lost and now was found, which was reason to party. And this time there's a son that's lost. Now he is found, which was reason to party. Is that the meaning of this text? Is that why Jesus threw these three stories together? That whenever something good happens to you, you should have a party? Well, perhaps. But I suspect there's more. Let's talk for a minute about interpreting parables. A parable is a story that Jesus throws down alongside of truth to help define it. It provides a contextual aha moment to the listener. And Jesus always used very earthy things, things that were common in the culture of the people he spoke to. Now, before the 20th century, interpreters, by and large, interpreted parables allegorically. They would assign a meaning to every element of the story. So in these parables, there would be a meaning to the coin, and there'd be a meaning to the sheep, and to the sons, and to the different neighbors. They would all have a different meaning, and the fatted calf would mean something, and the ring and the robe, it would all mean something. And before you were done, this parable would have 75 meanings. And everyone would see something different in it because they were reading their thoughts into the text instead of exegeting, taking the thoughts out of the text. And so during the end, near the end of the 19th century, Adolf Hülliker says, this is just, we got to stop this. It's too inconsistent. We have to develop a way to interpret parables so that we can extract their original meaning. Not just what did Jesus mean when he said it, but what did the author mean when he wrote it? What was here? And so Hülliker says that we should, instead of looking for 1 point per element, we should look for 1 point per parable. As with most stories have a point. And so he said that whenever you're interpreting, you should look for that 1 point. Now, recently Bloomberg has argued that instead of 1 point per parable, you should look for 1 point per character. So Bloomberg, in the parable of the prodigal son, would say the boy that left, the younger brother, there's one meaning there. The one that stayed, there's one meaning there. And the father, there's another meaning there. And how many of you have heard sermons on this text like that? Have you? Oh, I forgot. You don't raise your hands, do you? Just blink at me if you have, okay? All right. Some of you have. In this case, most of the time, I'm comfortable with looking for 1 point per parable. Even more comfortable than Bloomberg's emphasis on 1 point per character. However, I approach this text a bit differently. Because if you notice, this isn't just a parable, it's a parable cluster. Jesus tells these stories in response to a question. And he tells them one after another. It's almost as if he wants us to look for the pattern. Lost, found, party. Perhaps he wants us to see where the pattern breaks down. Because if we can find where the pattern breaks down, then we have his point. One more thing about interpreting parables. Stein added to our understanding when he says whenever you interpret a parable, you need to look at the end of the parable. It's called